Hello, Assalamualaikum. Today I'm going to show you the processing of canning. Canning is the process of applying heat to the food that's sealed in a jar in order to destroy any microorganism that can cause food spoilage. That is why the proper canning techniques will stop the spoilage by heating the food for a specific period of time and killing this unwanted microorganism. That's why during the canning process, air is driven from the jar and a vacuum is formed as the jar cools and seals. Firstly, we sterilize the bottle, the jar into the water bath canning. Make sure the temperatures for water bath canning is 100 Celsius. For water bath canning is suitable for high acid food, which is for example, I'm using pineapple pickles and also tomato, or you can use any kind of food. And kind of fruit also can use tomato jellies. The high acid food contain enough acid so that the Clostridium spore cannot grow and produce toxin by using water bath canning. That is the reason why we've used water bath canning for suitable for canning, which are high acid food and low acid food. For high acid food, the pH is 4.6 or lower. The high acid food have high enough acidity to block the growth of bacteria. For example, the high acid food is pickle, jams, jelly. Firstly, imagine this is the large pot of boiling water contain 100 Celsius, contain boiling water for temperature 100 Celsius, and then after that we put the jars onto the boiling water for about 10 minutes so that it can sterilize properly. Then we cutting the pineapple and making just imagine I'm cutting the pineapple, and then after that after 10 minutes, make sure don't remove the jar immediately. We pick up the jar whenever we want to put pineapple into the jar, so that it can prevent any bacteria to grow. Then sterilize the jar in the steam pot for in a locked compartment. I sterilize the jar and the lid, also the lid. Then whenever I want to put the meat, for example, you imagine that I cutting the meat, and then after undergo a few fermentation process, then I want to put the meat into the jar. Then I pick up the jar outside the pot, and then I put the meat into the pot. I pick up the jar using spatula then I pick up I put the meat into the jar. Then whenever I want to close the jar, I'm using magnet lid to close the jar. And then before that, I remove any leftover meat or any liquid there absent beside the jar. Then I close the jar. Then after that I put the jar of food that contain fermented meat are placed into to 3 inches of water in specific pressure steam and heated to temperature 160 until 121 Celsius. The reason why the pressure canning is used because Clostridium botulinum is everywhere. It can spread everywhere, so it can grow well in low acid food. That is why we need high acid food. For example, after added the meat, I put a little bit of sea salt, so that the spore cannot grow. And whenever we cook the food into the food for at pressure steam at 160 and 121, it can kill the Clostridium botulinum. You also can use I'm using example of meat, and you also can use any kind of low acid food such as fish or vegetables. Okay.